LIV Golf gets a lot of flack for giving big money contracts to players who are way past their prime and don't add to the competitiveness of the league. But that notion may not actually be true because one player, Andy Ogletree, got booted out of the breakaway circuit after a single event. Why? Well, in today's video, we're going to talk about Ogletree's confession and players who changed their minds about LIV, so keep watching. First off, Ogletree's horrendous LIV debut led to his departure. Andy Ogletree may not be a high-profile golfer by any stretch of the imagination, but unlike some other LIV signings last summer, he had some potential to do big things in the league. After all, not only was he only 24 years old, but he'd also claimed the 2019 U.S. Amateur title, so he was tipped to be one of the up-and-comers in the sport. That said, he had the misfortune of going against the mighty Tiger Woods in the Masters, a competition he obviously lost, setting in motion a downward spiral that we've heard many times before. And it was during these desperate times that he decided to join the Breakaway League to try out a change in environment. Little did he know that this would set his career on a collision course that was even worse than the previous one. Now, let's be clear, he's kind of the only one to blame here, because guess what? He was dead last in the inaugural Invitational at Centurion Club just outside of London. Oh, and he wasn't just last, he was very far behind. As a matter of fact, Ogletree shot rounds of 82, 77, and 75, finishing 24 shots over par. For reference, that's about 17 shots behind the winner, Charles Schwartzel, which is an absolutely horrendous record. So him being kicked was kind of warranted, especially with so many other top competitors making their way into the league. Up next, how the American got the short end of the stick. Make no mistake, there wasn't inherently anything wrong with the decision to boot Ogletree out of LIV Golf, but the circumstances that it happened under were pretty bizarre, to say the least. Let's rewind back to the time when he lost against Woods in the Masters, though. The guy was literally at rock bottom, as he had no money coming in, and his tournament exemptions were also running out. So when LIV rocked up and offered him a lifeline, it was a no-brainer for him. What's more, despite his bad performance, the 24-year-old still picked up a pretty decent $120,000 check. Here's the thing, though. As soon as he stepped onto the course at Centurion Club, he was suspended from the PGA Tour. What's more, this also meant that he'd be unable to compete in any Korn Ferry Tour events, which, you can say, is like the junior version of the PGA Tour. So he had no chance but to go all in on Greg Norman's vision, which made his sacking even more, for the lack of a better term, ironic. Like the guy can't play in the Tour or LIV at all now and is suspended until mid-December. That's honestly a pretty hefty chunk of time if you're struggling. That being said, there are of course other events around the world that he could go instead, like the International Series Egypt. Yep, Ogletree chose to discover new horizons after being kicked out of the mainstream golfing scene. Although surprisingly, he was actually pretty successful over there. What's more, Ogletree doesn't blame LIV for its decision. The American has had a total change of fortune over the past month. So much so that he's managed to win International Series Egypt with a total of 23 under, which is seriously impressive. What's more, he even picked up a $270,000 check for his win, dwarfing his LIV golf earnings. So now that he's doing well, he has finally decided to open up about the whole situation with the Saudi League. And according to him, he simply got the boot because he played badly. There are no two ways of looking at it. Interestingly, however, he mentioned that he wanted to compete in all LIV events, and he thought he'd signed up for more than one as well. Then again, with the great turnout that Niemann got after his first event, especially with stars like Dustin Johnson entering the fray, Ogletree understands their decision to let him go. And rather than blaming Niemann or anyone else, he feels like he just didn't take advantage of the opportunity presented to him. Not to mention, he doesn't feel bad about joining LIV either. Now, this isn't the first time he's talked about his experience in the Saudi League. It's just the first time he's admitted why he got booted. In fact, earlier this year, Ogletree had a pretty long interview with the Fire Pit Collective, where he explained his reasoning for joining the breakaway circuit. And according to him, he just needed somewhere to play golf and make some cash. Like, he was in such a bad position financially back then that securing funding for the next couple of years was absolutely a no-brainer decision for him. Not to mention, there weren't any other big events events happening around the time of the first LIV Invitational. He simply had an opportunity to play some golf and make some decent bucks, so he took it. Besides, we don't blame him either, as he's definitely got some benefit out of it. Plus, now that he's firing on all cylinders, we're sure he'll be able to win more things and make a comeback onto the tour or LIV sooner rather than later. Moving on to players who changed their minds about LIV golf. First up, we've got Brooks Koepka. Now, there have been a lot of golfers over the past year who have opposed LIV golf only to join them later, but no one comes even close to the insane switcheroo that Koepka did, because he was quite literally the harshest critic of the upstart league. In fact, merely weeks before he signed the contract to join Greg Norman's side, he went on a super long and passionate rant about everything that's wrong with LIV at the US Open. For instance, he said that everyone who defects to the PGA Tour is just a sellout. Not to mention, he also had some pretty strong words for the league's Saudi backing. That said, he was on the other side of the fence a few weeks later, and when asked why he made a U-turn on his words earlier in the year, he just responded with, "Opinions change, man." Coming up, we have Bryson DeChambeau. He was another one of LIV's marquee signings during the earlier part of the season, and despite the fact that there was a ton of speculation around his move back in February, he still refused to acknowledge any of it. In fact, he went as far as to say that he's fully committed to the PGA Tour and that the best players are playing here. That said, much like Koepka, DeChambeau also had a change of heart only a few months after that statement, as he was announced during the inaugural event at Centurion. He did, however, clarify his position with a pretty long statement though, and according to him, it was purely a personal business decision. For him, the opportunities he was gonna get to promote the game and set up his own multi-sport complex in his local community was something he could not have envisioned in the tour. What's more, the event in London also solidified his belief in the competition's ambitions. Bryson then thanked Tiger Woods for creating LIV Golf. Now for Dustin Johnson. Johnson, without a doubt, was LIV Golf's most high-profile signing before Cameron Smith one-upped him later during the season, but getting him on board wasn't as simple as some people think. Of course, being a top player, there was some speculation about his future. For him, though, the PGA Tour was the only destination. So just like DeChambeau, he also released a statement in February saying that he's fully committed to the tour. Not to mention, he also called it the best tour in the world. Having said that, even if he joined the Saudi League a few months after that, he never really lost his grace. As a matter of fact, he barely wavered from his earlier stance, saying that he was still very much thankful to the PGA Tour and everything they've done for him. He just felt that after spending 15 years with the association, it was time to try out something new. So that's why he made the switch. Finally, we've got Cameron Smith. Okay, we couldn't include the biggest signing of the season, Cam Smith. The Aussie has undoubtedly pushed LIV Golf into another echelon, but Norman had to wait for a very long time to secure his signature. Of course, reports of his new deal were already trending on social media back in March, and by the time he got to the playoffs, it was all but confirmed officially that he'd be making the switch. Still, he kept denying it over and over again, even lashing out at journalists at times, saying that he still wants to be a part of the PGA Tour. After the season wrapped up, though, his deal was finally made official, and credit to him, he was pretty transparent about it, saying that money definitely played a big role in convincing him. Well, that's a wrap for this video. So do you think Greg Norman could convince other PGA Tour supporters like Rory McIlroy to join his ranks too? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and we'll see you in the next one.
But here at Tiburon, seems like obviously the time goes by quickly, but what a great